Erik.
Hey, Dean. Good to see you.
Good. Thank you, sir. It's good to see you too. Okay, Erik. So tell folks a little bit about you, and then I want to just like push you off a cliff into a hypothetical situation.
Oh, pushed off a cliff is probably half my resume if you go to LinkedIn. Erik Charles, I'm fractional CMO, CRO, and board advisor, typically focusing in the SaaS industry, startups, scaling in that $1 to $10 million range is where I tend to play on a regular basis, though then I get pulled into a few others that are trying to do the double game from 100 million to 250 million. And yeah, I know that math doesn't add up, but that's the market.
Fair enough. The math ain't
Several
math, as the kids say.
Yeah, couple exits, couple acquisitions, couple unemployment checks. The usual love of 35 plus years in the game.
In sales, yep. Okay, so then here's my scenario. So you're fractional, so you have clients instead of employers. So you've signed this client. You've been through all the process. Contract's been signed. They're not virtual. Like they're only 5 minutes from your home. So this time on day one, you're gonna walk into their building at Monday at 9:00. Okay. What's the nightmare scenario you'd be walking into, and what's the dream scenario?
Nightmare scenario would probably be walking in and either finding out that whatever exists on the sales team, 3 of them resigned because they found out a new fractional was coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And worse, I find out they're the ones that actually were producing. And so I'm left with, shall we say, the uninspired, unmotivated leftovers that I have to figure out how much of my fractional time do I want to spend hiring in new people to actually run the shop. After that, it's going to be, I would have already gone through all the process of, so what is pipeline? Do you actually track anything? Do you have any data to help me? That whole classic funnel stuff from the first time someone's, walked by a booth or came onto the website to they were revenue and that are now actually continually buying it or a happy referenceable customer. But it's going to be the people.
What's the dream scenario then?
Dream scenario is the flip side, which is I've got some hard chargers. They maybe didn't like the prior sales leadership, or oftentimes it's the sales leadership was a founder CEO who just needed to go back to running the company as opposed to trying to run the sales team. And they're excited for the opportunity to actually, how can we make more money, man? Because we hear commissions.
Right.
So you're going to fix our commission plan? I'll say, yeah, that's actually going to be the first thing I'm going to do is we're changing, how we recognize your efforts.
All right. And then Brandon, hey, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you, team?
Good, thank you. So Brandon, tell folks a little bit about you, and then I want to talk about sort of the same scenario. You're not on the fractional side, you're on the full-time side. So when you start with a brand new employer, let's say, or a new division, or you moved into, what's the sort of the dream and what's the nightmare scenario you walk into?
You want it in dream, then nightmare, or nightmare, then dream?
It's up to you, but first let folks know about you.
All right. A little bit about me. I've got an interesting background. I did lead the way in a large public company and for like 8 years and built out a $350 million partnerships and alliances division. But from that, I pivoted into a high growth company that scaled from 7 to 100 million over a period of 8 years. A lot of bumps and bruises, scar tissue, broken bones, and those types of things. So I thought at that point, I've got some talent. Like maybe I've got this big company and this high growth company. I became an outsourced CRO for probably 4 years, stepped into 14 different companies. I would evaluate 12 growth drivers, high grade the top 5, and in parallel work on those top 5 that make the most immediate impact to revenue growth. And then I would hire my backfill once we got it to double digit or triple digit growth. That's kind of where it sat. And now I kind of got lonely out there on the road by myself, and I wanted to be a part of a culture, build a culture. I want to be in not just on the outskirts of the culture. I want to be in it, build it, develop it. I'm had a fortunate opportunity to step into company CAM, leading all enterprise mid-market partnerships and alliances, hyper growth mode. From a growth perspective, our plans are to grow to 250 million over a period of the next 2 years from around 75 million. So it's an exciting place to be. So I usually sit more comfortably in growing a company from 20 to 200 million, somewhere in that range. I think the kind of not the opposite of Erik is what I'm saying. So
when you walk into a situation, what's the sort of the dream or the nightmare?
Well, I'm going to talk about the nightmare situation because as an outsourced CRO, it happens all the time. When you step into a company, a lot of times what I find is that one, the culture is not, it doesn't fit what you need for a high growth culture. meaning the people aren't willing to do what it takes. Every human you talk to, they want to be a part of a world-class organization. They want to be a part of a World Cup team. They want to be a part of a national championship team, but they're not all willing to do the things to do to get there. And that's where the culture is a big piece. That because when there's a culture problem, it's hard to fix other things. But the second big thing is like when you find out they have a $15 million pipeline, you do some research and it's really
Right.
2 million, right? So then you start looking at the numbers, then you start looking at the CAC and the gross and net retention, and you look at culture, and it's very common for that to happen. And then CEOs wonder, I can't figure out why I'm not growing. Well, I have 3 top ideas: culture, pipeline, and then the metrics that you measure, right? That's
What's the dream then?
the dream scenario is absolutely what I stepped into now. You know, at the end of the day, you step into my dream scenario is the culture that I'm in right now. You got a great culture. People are excited to be here. People are excited to be, get up every day and come to work. And they also want to grow the company. The second thing, the numbers, all the metrics are in line. And at the end of the day, if you can come in and assess everything that I told you about assessing, I can assess 12 growth drivers, and you can do it and fix challenges inside the organization under the umbrella of growth, then it's like you're protected. We can grow at double digit, triple digit growth while I'm building this second S curve of mid-market enterprise,
Right.
and it supports me all the way. And then you look at, CAC, gross and net, it's up where it needs to be. And all I'm doing is making a healthier revenue play, going after the right market and the right customers.
Okay, so Brandon, so we don't look very far ahead in this podcast. So that's day 1, but we're going to go all the way out to the distant future of day 89. So not very far. And so you end up passing the CEO or someone from the board, in the hallway at this place, and they say, "Hey, I was just thinking about you yesterday." Right? And I mean, I think we made a good decision. I think you'd agree that for bringing you in, but I didn't really have my aha moment about what you were going to be doing or providing here until yesterday. What was that aha moment that they had? What did they have to see you do before they really understood the value of having you there?
What's really interesting when you step into a company is that, not everyone's bought into you, first of all, and your changes. And the biggest risk, because I know based on more failures and successes what we need to do, but you got to think about the ability for a company to digest change at the rate they can digest change. And you've got to assess it quickly. And when I step into a company, I can come in and say, we're going to do these 5 things and we're going to do them starting today. No one would be bought in. And I've done that before and failed. And here, this is where 90 days, you got a good, strong 90-day plan. And, there are a couple of books to get you there. But at the end of the day, that first month you're assessing, that second month you're creating a plan, that in the 90 days, then you're executing it. When they see what you've assessed, created, clearly documented, and described and visually appealing where they understand it, it's not just a document that's 42 pages long. Paint the vision of where we're headed. It's that vision, and then how you're going to execute it tactically. That's where the aha moment is. And that's the reason why typically they would hire Erik or hire me for a role like this.
And Erik, what about you? When someone takes you aside and says, "Okay, I get it now," right? It's not just like the regular stuff. I get it, and what you're doing here. What are they talking about?
Typically, it's the spin I put out, and when they're hiring me, of we're going to the first thing I want to do is be able to actually see what's going on. I'm a data guy. We're all data people. Let's face it. That doesn't make me unique, but it's like, look, I said from day 1 we're going to look at these. I looked at the pipeline. I agree with Brandon. I flushed out half the pipeline because it was garbage.
Right.
You set a goal that everybody had to have 4x pipeline to their quota. By the way, we're going to talk about quotas next month because you don't even know what a quota is. I can tell by what you've set. But now I can show you, take a look. You saw the deal that closed yesterday. Maybe that's what triggered you. You know how that came in. Well, we went back. This is how we first heard from them. This is what they actually wanted. These were the people that were involved because you didn't have any persona messaging, and which is again one of those 40-page document strategy line items, but it's so important for the sales team to actually be trained, told, and assisted in pitching to all the decision makers. And that's why that deal came in. We got a better focus. You've got it in. And guess what? Here's the rest, because I'm now starting next quarter, 90 days, my brain goes straight to quarter, I'll freely admit.
Yep.
We're actually going to start having a sales forecast you will be comfortable talking to the board about, and we're going to try and tighten up that standard deviation of plus or minus on that forecast. And it's going all the way back, like I said, at the beginning of the funnel, because I worked as a sales rep, and then I went into marketing, and then I went back into sales, then I went deep into marketing. So I've always looked at this from the whole perspective, and even to the extent of, on that thing, and I'll steal a line from somebody I worked for, marketing can't be green if sales is red.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, Erik, stay with me for a second, and let's switch sort of scenarios. So you're on stage. You're the keynote speaker. There's 250 people in the audience. They've worked their way up, and tomorrow, every one of them starts their very first day as a head of sales somewhere. It's their first time being head of sales somewhere. Okay. And so you're going to give them this talk because you're the expert now to them. And we're all going to go through sort of the three parts of this thing. So I'm just going to give you a statement and let you finish it. And then I'm going to switch back to Brandon. Okay. So you're talking to these guys and say, look, a CRO starting out, something you're going to be shocked by is what?
The pipeline is BS. If you're starting out, whatever the past numbers are, odds are you can't trust it.
Mm-hmm.
So go inspect it, but don't assume you had to beat somebody up about it. Figure out why it's not accurate, because you didn't get hired because there was great pipeline and they were closing things. Everybody's hitting their number. That job doesn't exist. Nobody gets, hey, we're looking for a CRO for a company that's doing 40% year-over-year growth, and we just want you to maintain that. So there's a problem. And the first thing I'm going to look at is, can I even trust the pipeline?
And Brandon, when you're talking to this kind of audience, they're about to start their very first day as head of sales, right? Company-wide head of sales, right? How do you finish the sentence? Something you're really going to be surprised by in this job is what?
I would say go-to-market org, clarity and accountability and alignment. So, like Erik said, it's like typically in many companies, things are siloed, and there's 20, 30, 40% increase in revenue growth and pipeline and retention. When there's alignment, I step into $20 million company or $200 million company. And what I find, the clarity around go-to-market and alignment against the target, there's always silos. And even when you feel like it's the most aligned, it's still not completely aligned. So that alignment is what accelerates revenue growth.
Okay. And then the next sort of sentiment for them is this, and then a lesson that you're going to take away. Brandon, we'll stick with you for a second. Like you're talking to these folks, you're saying, look, one lesson that you're going to take away after your first 90 days of doing this job is what?
And this is me speaking to them around this lesson.
Yeah. What lesson are they going to take away after the first 90 days, do you think?
Of me
compared
doing
to their prior jobs?
I would say that, from a lesson perspective, that the people make the difference, right? Like I can have the best systems, processes, but at the end of the day, if I don't have the right people, they don't matter, right? But if I've got strong people, we can build systems and processes. Mm-hmm. That's what you'll be surprised about.
All right, cool. And then Erik, so like at the end of 90 days, what lesson do you think they'll have learned at the end of their first 90 days?
If your strong foot is on the sales side, if you're smart, marketing is now your best friend. Mm-hmm. And they actually contact you and say, we just had an amazing inbound, wanted to make sure it didn't get lost somewhere in the email. You should know about this. And if you're on the marketing side, it's going to be sales actually believes in your MQLs.
Yeah,
they do. They actually agree with you. They don't think you're just throwing garbage over the wall, whining that nobody's doing anything with it.
Right. All right. And then Erik, the last one, they're trying to get you off stage, right? So like, and then it's like the Oscars and the music's coming up, and some intern is like, but by God, you're going to tell them one more thing, okay? You're going to say, look, you're starting a new job, right? It's going to be a new company too. What you're going to find is the companies that you're starting at, they don't understand what?
They don't understand they truly don't understand what makes a great new customer. They know what a great customer looks like. They don't
Right.
understand what makes a great new customer.
Well, that's a good answer. And Brandon, how about you? What you're going to find out in the audience? You're starting at this new company. You're the head of sales now. These companies, they don't understand what?
I would say, now, when you ask that question, you're asking the people in the audience are the sellers?
Yeah, they're the head of sales. They're going to find that their new employer doesn't understand what?
I would lean in on like ICP and value prop alignment. Because
Yeah.
what happens early on is it may be aligned now and it pivots based on industry changes. And the reality is this is what built the business to this number.
Right.
And, that is great to get it from point A to point B, but B to C and D to E, there may be another S curve that you got to go and pursue. And it may be a completely different one. That as there's a time when there's a pivot and when it needs to happen, you need to be aware, and the awareness is the first stage. Then it's planned, then it's execute in a fast way.
So in a lot of companies, they don't understand that what got them here is not going to get them there.
Not only in product, also in people.
Right. Oh, that's good. All right. Now I'm going to ask you, Brandon, possibly the hardest question in this entire podcast. What defines selling in 2025 compared to 5 years ago?
It's interesting. A lot of people talk about, is AI going to replace my job? And the answer is no. But the real answer is this: a seller without AI go-to-market backbone and backdrop will replace sellers without it.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now we've launched AI go-to-market strategy inside of our company, and what we're learning how to do and shaving 10 hours off of our week, and also accelerating our path to revenue growth from an enablement perspective, rev ops, from marketing, and even sales outreach is astronomical. We've learned so much in the last 2 months. I mean, that's going to be a big part of the future, but it's a complement to what we're doing to accelerate the seller.
All right. And then Erik, how about you?
I'm going to come from a different perspective. 5 years ago, it's a little tight. It's 2020, and I remember where I was.
Mm-hmm.
But we had SaaS, so the idea of the subscription economy was certainly taking off, no question. But we're now we're seeing more and more examples of the consumption economy popping up. So you're selling logos in hopes of more future revenue. In the same way that the CRO broke down the barrier between marketing and sales, if done right, the sales to customer success barrier is getting broken down as we do more land and expand. We do more just get the logo. We do more just get them inside. And finding those both handoffs and partnerships is shifting all of it. And we just can't look at one and done relationships. I mean, even if you go to a car dealership, it's not one and done. They'll make more money off of you if you come in for the oil changes. Mm-hmm. They want you to come in for the oil changes because their profit margin on the car is one, but profit margin on services is much higher. Every industry is starting to feel that if they don't keep taking care of you, but they haven't put the mentality of that into all aspects of the company to stay on top of it.
Well, all right. Okay, so Erik, answer me this. Okay, as you're talking to new, in your case, because you're fractional, new prospective clients. So you're talking to these companies. Some percentage of them hopefully will become clients, right? When they're talking to you about sales and selling, what do they tend to overrate these days, and what's something that they underrate, like criminally underrate?
They will put too much emphasis on some sort of random metric of when the CEO is tracking how many calls were made that day. That concerns me. It's like, that's my job. Why are you spending that much of your time on a daily basis looking at activity? Not that activity measurement isn't necessary. And I've seen academic research that shows activity-based incentives can be very effective in certain industries. Mm-hmm. But I don't need the CEO focusing on all of that. I've got to get the CEO to trust me on that. what they underrate is the simplicity of a good commission plan. I mean, I got my start in the industry designing commission plans. And I can always tell when somebody with no real sales knowledge has built a commission plan. There are these convoluted, overly complicated, impossible to understand. And one of my tests when I go to a new client, I've got two of them. One is if I walk up to your top rep and ask them how much they'll make on their next deal and they don't know, you're wasting money in your commission plan, period. And they don't trust you, by the way, because they never think the commission's wrong because of, an error. They assume the company's out to get them.
Right.
So that's the other one is if your top rep makes more than you in cash this year, Ms. CEO, do you care? And if they're like, that's nonsense, sales isn't worth it, I'm out. I can't work with them.
Right. And Brian, how about you? You're like evaluating like your next big opportunity, your next full-time, right? What, as you're talking to companies, what do they tend to overrate about selling and sales, and what do they underrate?
Well, they overrate that sales is easy, right? Like there is an art, there is a science. I think it's getting more and more complicated, with AI and also the way the industry changes and everything else. So they overrate that sales is a job that you just make the calls and you're getting the deals. It's complicated, it's complex. Especially when you see people succeeding, they're like, there's a lot to it. It's like, I would compare it to, hypothetically, you're a doctor. Someone comes into someone's a doctor. The doctor asks you a ton of discovery questions to understand how to diagnose what the problem is. But without that, if you were just, what most people think is that you just come in and you just give them some medicine and it's done.
Yeah.
They overrate sales. I would say what's underrated, it's probably the power of combining your go-to-market motion, right? Like it's like what I find on alignment is that like with sales, marketing, RevOps, like RevOps has become my number one person. Like next to me, this is the person that I need to guide me and direct me on where the conversions are, where the numbers are in a very polished and refined way. So I can go out, meet with board, meet with the leadership team and do the things. So I'm not digging into the numbers.
And then, okay, so let's sort of stick to a similar situation, right? So as you're talking to companies that might be your next employer, your next big opportunity, okay, what's a red flag that you notice? And what's a green flag that you notice? As in, like, a red flag is in like, these guys are not for me. I'm not even sure these guys should be hiring someone like me, right? And a green flag is like, oh, that would be a sweet setup.
I would say the first red flag for me is probably starting with the CEO, right? For me, I mean, if I'm going to partner with a CEO or a go-to-market leadership team, it could be the CEO, it could be the go-to-market leadership team. And what I'm looking for, I'm looking for alignment, passion, has a servant leadership type, backdrop, and they understand that. Far too often we run into situations where there may be narcissists and people that are just hard to work with and hard to deal with.
And then what's sort of a green flag?
A green flag, it's almost the opposite of that. I'm looking for things like everything that I just spoke about on the alignment and leadership team. You can fix everything downstream as long as you have good alignment at the top. And I would also add to that, if there is a board, the board, right? Is the board aligned with the leadership team? Because oftentimes the board has a plan, the go-to-market team has a plan. They bring you into the middle of it, and then you are a target because you're not aligned with both of them. I look for alignment all the way down. We can fix everything else below the leadership team as long as these two are aligned.
Right. All right. And Eric, how about you? What's sort of a green flag a company gives off? What's a red flag when you're talking to them for your next engagement?
I mean, a great green flag is, I'm going to double down on the RevOps idea there, which is you come in and I'm asking questions and like, that's what that looks like. That's what that looks like. We can actually see, I can actually track everything and I can see where the budget's been applied. And even better, it's a CEO that sometimes says, look, I just don't have the time to manage this. I need to know where to invest to improve. And I'm willing to give you, this is your budget to spend how you like, that's a scary one. It's like, because I've had this is your budget, go spend it. And then like, hold it. Why are you spending it on that? Well, I thought you told me this is my budget. So I'm spending it here. So it's that, especially flexibility on budget. It could be as simple as we're doing a dinner at an event because we're actually going to be at something with a lot of our prospects and customers. I just want to go spend the money on the steak and wine circuit. It happens, and I can see it in the data. So that's a good green flag. It's like, oh, so you need leadership. You've got the data, but you don't know what to do with the data. Because if they knew what to do, they wouldn't be hiring me. And maybe the prior person would still be around.
Fair enough.
The red flag
Yeah.
is the negativity. And sometimes we're running into that. It's like, oh, the sales guys, they're just a bunch of knuckleheads. They're, high school football players who are sitting there reliving their glory days. I don't know what they really do. I don't even know if we need them. I'm sure we could be a product-led growth company and people just be buying off our website if we just had the right marketing team who knew how to express it. Yeah, I start looking for that. If you're denigrating the entire team,
right.
Are you asking me to come in and be a hatchet man? You've hired me as a fractional to actually run the layoff, quote, restructuring process. One, that I don't enjoy that at all. Two, why? How did you get to this point? What are our hiring? Because I'll start asking, what's the process to hire? If I've got good people in my network, and one of the questions I always ask myself, would I bring a good contact, a good member of my network, potentially a good friend into this company after I've been there for 90 days? Would I be willing to say, hey, Brandon, been a while since we talked. I have got a place here. I wonder if you'd want to come and join my team. If I get that, this is where the gut comes in. My gut says, why would you do that to a friend? It's like, I know I probably shouldn't be around here.
All right. And so actually that leads into the next and the last question that we're going to have is that because guests on this podcast choose their own date and time slot, then it's random. It's a random pairing, right? And so at the end of the episode, I give each guest the chance to ask the other guest who's in sort of the same field as them, right? Like any question you want. So we'll have Erik ask Brandon, and then if you want, and then Brandon can reciprocate. But Erik, like, what question would you ask Brandon?
Ooh, this is a good one.
If imagine that like you're in a building that's full of CROs. Brandon walks into the elevator. You're the only two there, and you don't know him. But you say, "Hey, we don't know each other, but since I got you here, I'm curious about this. Let me ask you." And then, what would you ask him?
What's the biggest challenge? Actually, the one I've been asking a lot of CROs, and I love asking this, is we're all chasing the AI dream. Me too. We're all on it. Where have you found some really tactical, applicable successes?
That is a good question.
So one of the things that we've adopted, prompting is just the base level of AI first, right? You got to be really good at prompting to get the output you want. It moves up into, fractional agents and those types of things. What I've used it for recently, most as a leader, is I have built a comprehensive partnerships and alliances strategy using a prompt with my numbers. I put in my targets, my conversions, my past conversions, where I want to be in the future. Here are the top customers I'm focusing on. And then I'll go in and put the outline, a 10-step plan to get us to this number, and then give me tactical execution. And it gets me 70% there within 30 minutes. I spend another hour and get us 100% there. And then I invest all of my time on execution, not 3 months of strategy planning. That's on the strategic side. On the sales side, which is fantastic, we have essentially built out a coaching ChatGPT for our industry, for our personas, leveraging an assessment on the strengths and weaknesses of the sellers. And we've uploaded those in there. Like if someone has an issue talking about money, or they have emotional issues, they have things that keep them off track. Buy cycle, negative buy cycle. We take the coaching and the assessment. We take our sales methodology. We take our industry. We take our methodologies. And then we type in, we're going to talk to this company, this vice president, coach me on this before I go in. That's the first thing. We go in, we do the call, we take the call transcript, then we drop it back in there. It says, tell me about the top 3 things that could have done better here. And where do you think this customer will go? I mean, 2 big things, right? And this is all within minutes. So make no mistake. I mean, it's a place where there's a lot of learning potential to accelerate revenue growth.
Yeah. And then Brandon, what question would you have?
I love the question, by the way. It's a really good question. As you step into, well, one big question I have for you is like, why are you passionate between 0 to 10 million? Like, where does that passion come from?
I love the startup world. I've burnt my fingers multiple times on startups, and there's this great point of you launch, get a little product going, you get a few buyers. I call them the friends and family buyers because somewhere in you've got a good warm relationship with you, and hopefully you haven't spent. And then I call that phase the evangelical selling phase. When I carried a bag, that's my favorite phase of selling. Is hey, please trust me. We'll have the product ready. I just want you to sign up to be an early adopter. And yes, I'm going to charge you. I don't give it away for free. I love that challenge. Then when you get past that, it's like, can we create a repeating system, hire up a sales team? And it's really funny because this is where I come in as a fractional, because I'm like, you don't need a full-time CRO. What you need is a really good director of sales with 2 or 3 reps. And if you're doing the BDR, SDRs as well, depending upon how you've got that set up below them. And let's go get this doubling, and building up the use cases, building up the customer stories, building up the proof that you have something to offer. I just find that's an exciting greenfield. Admittedly, it's also oftentimes the competition is other startups or one big and a couple big entrenched enterprises. And I love getting aggressive, looking for places where the big enterprise company that exists in my space thinks they play, but they've done a terrible job of paying attention. And it's just fun, because you can also get that exponential growth curve, which is enjoyable.
All right, guys, this has been, I've learned a lot. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate you guys dropping by today and helping me out on this. Erik, who should be contacting you these days, and how should they get to you?
Most of my contacts are coming in from the investing public. So family offices and venture capital funds will sometimes bring me into their portfolio companies that, again, are ready to move beyond founder-led sales. But also the CEOs come in, and then because of the fractional nature of the CRO work, sometimes it's a head of marketing, sometimes it's a head of sales, each one of them saying, I need help on this side. And the other one's like, I need help on this side. And that can come into play as well. ErikCharles.com is the best way to get a hold of me, or I can be easily found on LinkedIn.
All right, Erik with a K for those listening instead of watching. And then, Brandon, how about you? Who should contact you these days, and how should they do it?
Well, in my world, I'm a scale guy. I take what Erik's built, and it's like, hey, do you want to go to 100, 200 million? I'm typically a guy that would lean in on those opportunities. I probably interviewed 1,400 people and hired 140 and go to market. And at the end of the day, a lot of times, if it's not me right for the job, I know someone that's right for the job. So I typically do a lot of referrals and connecting from that perspective. And I do, a lot of times CROs or aspiring CROs, they want some coaching to get there. Because I've succeeded and I've failed multiple times, I typically will lean in there. I'll usually coach a couple of people at a time, but I don't overextend myself from that perspective.
All right, guys, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll catch you next time. And once again, thanks for dropping by. I really appreciate you guys. Bye.
Thanks a lot.